is, I think, something that Jesse was talking about earlier, that not all of these exemptions are the same language. So you have a chart here with 11 agencies that have exemptions. The PLDC exemption says that...
Do you have a question?
I'm asking the question.
Okay, thank you.
The projects pursuant to this chapter shall be exempt from all statutes, ordinances, charter provisions, and rules of any government agency relating to special improvement district assessments or requirements, land use, zoning, construction standards for subdivisions, development, and improvement of land, and the construction, improvement, and sale of homes thereon. Do any of the other 11 agencies that you have listed in your chart have this same exemption?
I haven't looked at the language specifically, but I can talk about, by comparison, for example, the 201H state affordable housing process. So the language actually is similar to that in 201H. But 201H still, the counties have a final say. The exemptions are discussed and approved by the county council. So there's a process in place. So again, there's that concept where we're going to take away the usual process because we want affordable housing, in this case for 201H, and in its place is a different process that still achieves the public input and ensuring that we're consistent with other state plans, because it still goes through the LUC and the county. But it's faster because there's some things that are taken out.
Okay, so it's fair to say it's not an identical exemption. PLDC projects under this statute would not go through that county review, would not go through the Land Use Commission, but HHFDC under Chapter 201H, the county council would still have the authority to approve or not approve the project, and the Land Use Commission also would have to approve, modify, or not approve the project.
I have to apologize because when I prepared to testify in this, I looked at the bill on its face and it was talking about exemptions from regarding the 11 agencies. So PLDC, that's not my expertise.
Right.
I wasn't involved in the development or the implementation of it, so I cannot say.
Okay, but as far as the HHFDC, you're familiar with that process, and that does go through some Land Use Commission review and some county council review. Okay. Hawaiian Homelands, well, I guess we have the agency here, so we can talk with her about that. But I don't see HCDA or HTDC here, so maybe I can ask you about those. Again, the exemptions that those agencies have, they are not as broad as the PLDC. They are constrained in some manner.
Well, HCDA, for example, does have exemptions from county zoning specifically and county plans, but they develop their own plans and their own zoning.
Okay. And is there a requirement under state law that those plans and zonings follow the existing laws, rules, and ordinances as closely as is consistent, with that they can do for the developments in those areas?
They consider it. Yeah.
But the answer is no. HCDA does not have to follow anything in the county.
They don't have to, right?
They don't have to. The answer is no.
Yeah.
I guess what I'd ask is under 206E, isn't there a statutory requirement that they shall follow existing laws, rules, ordinances, and regulations as closely as is consistent with the standards for meeting the minimum requirements of design, health, safety, and coordinated development?
Yeah, we're parsing words here, so it's they need to look at it, but they're not bound by it. But I would say that it's in the best interest of any of these agencies, no matter how much exemptions they have, to coordinate with the county and the state, because at the end of the day,
you got to transfer
utilities connected and building occupancy permits.
They have to get sewer hookup.
And then transferring roads, ownership, transferring sidewalks.
Maybe we could get somebody.
Maybe is Esther Kiaina here?
Yeah, from PLDC or.
Oh, maybe Shane. Oh, Morris.
Morris, can you come up here?
Hi, Morris Atta with the Rural Land Natural Research.
So, Morris, you helped write the original bill.
Yes.
And what other agency, other than, and I don't want this to be a debate, I didn't expect it to go like this, we're going to be comparing everyone against the LDC, but if that's where we're going to go, that's fine. Is there any other agency?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I think that's really relevant because, you know, we've been under attack about PLDC. You know, like we've been supposedly doing things that were underhanded and, you know, so on and so forth. You know, so I think that this is really necessary so that the public has a clear understanding that there's a lot of those exemptions in all of these organizations. You know, we weren't asking for something that other organizations don't already have. And in particular, we were asking it to help improve the people's aina. Yeah, the state parks, the small boat harbors. So I think this is a relevant, discussion.
But in regards to process, then, is there any other agency in the situation with the LDC where they need the explicit permission of another agency before they even consider a project?
I'm not sure what you mean by the permission of other agencies.
Like the land board would have to have voted for it.
Yeah,
DOE would have to have. I mean,
right.
The agency that owns the land or
Right.
manages it, they have to.
Right.
They have to decide.
The underlying principle behind the PLDC was that it was basically supposed to be a service agency for other agencies. It wasn't originally intended as to be a title holding agency that retained title and made dispositional decision making regarding, you know, the ultimate disposition of the asset.
Yeah.
It was intended to receive assets from agencies that have real property and developable assets, improve them, possibly get them to the point of revenue generation if that was appropriate, or do maintenance work that was much needed. Basically provide development expertise to all these agencies that had assets that were either fallow or underutilized to some extent.
But the agency that owns the asset, they decide.
And so with that concept in mind, before the PLDC could do anything, they would have to actually receive or get the asset transferred to them by the title holding agency. That agency was still bound and required to go through its normal analysis and discretionary decision making and fulfill any fiduciary requirements that it had. In the case specifically with the Borderland and Natural Resources, it would still have to go through the same studies, the same fiduciary standards that any other decision regarding disposition of land had to go through. So that in no way affected that process. The PLDC was intended to just come in after that decision-making process had been done.
So maybe I can, I'm hearing we're maybe dancing around some things, and in order to cut to the chase a little bit, if you look at the exemptions from the High Technology Development Corporation and Hawaii Strategic Development Corporation, they vastly exceed what PLDC had. In other words, if I was a smart no, I'm going to reword that. If I was a someone that wanted to get around half of the things, I would, because if I was to do it with one of these corporations, just a partnership with them, I can use all of their exemptions. It's very easy. I want to do a new development somewhere. Why would I come through the regular process when I just do a partnership with these two, one of them, and they're exempt from zoning, they're exempt, they can create their own financing, one can create its own bank. Remember last year we had the whole discussion about a state bank? Sorry guys, it was already in the statute.
Yes,
if they just went and partnered with one of these guys. So, the point is that it's astounding that what PLDC wanted to do was small compared to the exemptions that these guys had. And yet nobody complained about that. So that's why I'm looking forward to them coming up to explain that. But I think that's what everybody's getting around to is, we have corporations and existing entities with huge leeway. And, that's what we've heard from many people in the public is, okay, we don't like that leeway anymore.
Right. And in fact, the exemption provisions in the PLDC statute was crafted from language taken from all the other existing special development type agencies. So it was kind of a hybrid, but it was all taken
new,
from
right?
existing agencies.
So for those who are opposing PLDC, they're by extension opposing all these others as well.
I guess you could say that.
Yeah. That's the point we're trying to make here.
In helping